Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't. Don't take it, don't.
Welcome to you all. It's a great joy to be here. So many friends are here in the audience. Several of you have just completed our 223rd week-long Commonweal Cancer Help Program in the last 38 years. And so we have two or three actually of our new alumni in the audience. We all just spent a week down in the retreat center together. Many of us believe the Cancer Help Program is perhaps the most powerful of all the things we do at Commonweal. Just a brief word, how many of you are new to Commonweal, just out of curiosity? Great, a good number. So I'll just take a couple of minutes to introduce Commonweal. We are a 48-year-old nonprofit center that has always been difficult for people to describe in ordinary language, but we can say that we do a lot of work in health and healing, education and the arts, and environment and justice. And we have about 25 projects scattered around the world, locally, nationally, globally, in those three areas. The Commonweal started when I was walking on Poplar Road and I looked out at this property from Bolinas about 49 years ago, and I had an image come through me, or a vision, of a center for healing ourselves and healing the earth. And we've been here ever since working on that unending opportunity that we all have to do whatever we can to discover how to heal ourselves in these tragic, momentous, unprecedented times, and to live lives of service and joy and peace while dedicated to doing everything we can to heal ourselves, to heal our communities, and to heal the earth. About 7 years into Commonweal's history, after we had started the Cancer Help Program, I believe, I met Toby Symington. Toby and I shared profound interests in philosophy, esoteric traditions, and we got to talking because the Lloyd Symington Foundation was exploring how to make a difference in cancer. And so we co-created the Lloyd Symington Foundation conferences on new directions in cancer care. And those conferences, which brought together many of the great pioneers of integrative cancer therapies, helped move the field from a place where those therapies were regarded as cancer quackery by the establishment to a place where now almost every single major cancer center in the country has an integrative cancer program as part of its work. So this has been a collaborative work that has changed the field, changed our lives, changed the lives of the participants. So Toby and I were talking with each other, and the thought came up somehow synchronistically between us of a festival of sacred music. So that idea percolated for a while, and we joined with Kira Epstein to think about how we could do it best. And we are so thrilled that Maryliz Smith is our first pianist. And Maryliz, synchronistically, is a core member of the staff of Callanish in Vancouver, British Columbia. And Callanish is the other place that I know of in North America, certainly, that does week-long cancer help programs of the same quality as ours. They are every bit as good. And Janie Brown is a close friend and colleague. She has done this absolutely brilliant, pure piece of work up in Callanish that is just a complete work of art. And Maryliz Smith is very much a part of her core faculty. And Maryliz's astonishing music has been a core dimension of it. Music is one of those profound symbolic systems of healing that speaks to us obviously at a level beyond words and speaks to the unconscious as well as the conscious. So I would encourage you to open yourself up to the possibility that something deep in you will heal this afternoon. Because healing is a life work. It never ends. It's that movement toward wholeness within us, toward what Jung called individuation, toward finding our own unique way to find our way through this life. I think that's enough from me. So it's a great honor and privilege to introduce my dear friend, fellow pilgrim on the path, partner in the cancer work, extraordinary astrologer, esoteric philosopher, and the man who takes my wife, Cheryl Patton, to the opera on a regular basis, Toby Symington.
So I just wanted to, first of all, extend a very warm welcome to everyone here, everyone who's attending virtually, and to thank Michael for a characteristically generous and gracious introduction. We've done a lot of collaborations over the years. I like to say that, the collaborations that we've done in the field of cancer, but also this Festival of Sacred Music, these are a fruit of our friendship of now almost 40 years. And, friendship has many dimensions and many levels. And we've done these conferences and these public forums. I want to just, there are a lot of things I could say about Michael, but I think one of the things I most admire about him is the way he applies the vision of a mystic in highly practical ways to the relief of suffering. And all kinds of suffering, from the personal to the planetary. He was mentioning the core mission of Commonweal, healing ourselves, healing the earth. And I know of very, very few people who bring together the contemplative and active dimensions of our human existence at Michael's level of excellence. The little bit on how the festival came into being, it goes back to a conversation we had last fall, as Michael was saying. He said, what do you think of this idea? We put on these piano recitals, actually, of sacred music at the solstices and the equinoxes. And that seemed like a pretty good idea, but that was a lot to take in. So then we were taking a hike where, things crystallized, a lot of things crystallized. And on our way back, we saw these two ravens on top of the hill. And I said to Michael, I think that's a sign. I said, well, I think the two of us are supposed to do another collaboration. And I said, maybe the venue will be, the gallery here, which I like to call the upper room, where the spirit is very much alive and magic happens. And here we are. So the Festival of Sacred Music is really a project of the new school. Kira Epstein, I'm not sure where, oh, there she is. Okay, Kira, the co-director. I just want to say a few words about the new school. She was telling me that it goes back maybe 17 years. And another one of Michael's initiatives, I think basically began as conversations with people that Michael was interested in talking to. And I remember 3 events in particular. This was pre-pandemic when the events were mostly live. One with Brother David Steindl-Rast, the Benedictine monk who wrote this wonderful book, Gratefulness, the Heart of Prayer. And then W.S. Merwin, the eminent poet and translator, and Caroline Casey, first-class astrologer, and many of you know her as the visionary activist for many years on KPFA. Commonweal has had conversations with Beatrice Chesnick, who's one of the leading authorities on the Enneagram, and someone I regard as really an enlightened human being, our Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, in conversation with Rachel Remen. I particularly want to thank Kira, the co-director of the New School, for bringing things together. I mean, for the first time around, there are a lot of moving parts. And Kira has done a fantastic job pulling this all together. And I also want to acknowledge the A-team we have here at Commonweal. Ken Adams is our sound engineer, does fantastic recordings. He did the recording. We had the 3 public forums on integrative cancer care in 2016, 17, and 18. Ken did these really fine recordings. And then Claire Hart, who's this gourmet chef who's making the refreshments today. So the Festival of Sacred Music, how do we come up with that term? I mean, usually we think of a festival as a number of events running several days, maybe a couple of weeks, like the Cannes Film Festival. But the original meaning of the word festival was a religious holiday. And the religious holiday could be just one day, like Easter in the Christian world. But for our purposes, festival really means a celebration, an occasion for joy, for communal joy, and the joy that does not exclude sorrow, but fully embraces sorrow. One way I see the festival is an opportunity to hear some music, which I think will be pretty amazing, and then to gather, meet old friends, make new connections, and so forth. And at a time when the Earth community is facing multiple crises, when there is so much unnecessary suffering in the world, and when in this country, our democratic institutions are under severe threat. I mean, the most severe threat since the 1850s. I think coming together in a convivial way around some really fine music can, at the very least, lift our spirits. And so my hope is that over time, I mean, if these concerts catch on, that, a sangha, a circle of conviviality will take form and coalesce. And if nothing else, we can always celebrate the solstice or the equinox. I wanted to mention that the solstices and the equinoxes are like the PowerPoints on the calendar. When certain cosmic energies are particularly strong, and if we align with those energies, they can really amplify our experience of the music here. So then, Festival of Sacred Music. The word sacred is not an easy word to define. It refers to a dimension of reality that goes far beyond the rational conceptualizing mind. But I think you can point to signs of the sacred, like when we are moved to the very core of our being, let's say by a piece of music, or we experience feelings of wonder or awe, reverence, gratitude, rapture, that open our hearts and take us to the deepest level of who we are. And I will be inviting friends of mine. Initially, they will all be friends who are not only highly skilled musicians, but are deeply in touch with the numinous, and who are really good at connecting with an audience, bringing people together through music, and infusing what they play with a certain luminosity and radiance. And so my hope is that today, for sure, and down the road, that we'll all experience moments of revelation, and that the music we hear will delight, inspire, and elevate the soul. And in Maryliz Smith, we have someone I think is the ideal person to lead off the festival. Some of you may remember Maryliz from our public forum of integrative cancer care back in 2017, where she played two pieces. One of them by the wonderful Italian composer Ludovico Einaudi, and Due Tramonti, two sunsets, probably my favorite piece of Einaudi's. And Maryliz has told me she's going to be playing that today, which makes me very happy. So, Maryliz has had a very rich and diversified career in music. I mean, earlier in her life, she was playing concerts of organ music. She was writing pieces for chamber music ensembles. And vocal groups. Today, she'll be playing the piano, of course, and we'll be hearing shorter pieces which have a contemplative resonance. I mean, that's how one of the things I really appreciate about Maryliz, that the music she plays really can touch the heart. And as Michael was saying, Maryliz has been not only an integral part of the Calvinist community, I mean, a co-founder of Calvinish with Janie Brown. And she was telling me that, they've done, I think, over 100 retreats. Maryliz has been at all those retreats except maybe for 2. And what she does, I mean, as I understand it, I mean, she not only brings people together through the music, but she has a way of drawing out the unique and distinctive voice of each person on retreat. I mean, it's really an incredible gift. And then for some years, she was an integral part of the Invitus, or is it Invitus? Invitus team, INVITAS, which is a leadership project pulled together by David Whyte, one of our most distinguished contemporary poets. And then there's a digital project, which I find very exciting, which she's calling Song of the Earth. And that will involve some highly evocative music of Maryliz, words from Brian Swimme, the evolutionary cosmologist, who's really good at telling the story of the universe, and the words from the distinguished Buddhist scholar and environmental activist Joanna Macy. And as I understand it, one of her intentions is to initiate conversations that then move through various stages toward some kind of focused, meaningful action around a pressing issue like the climate crisis. So this will be, I think, coming out later this year. It's a 30-minute immersive audio. And then just on a personal note, I mean, when Maryliz and I met some years ago, I felt this instant affinity. We have this lunar connection. And whenever we meet for lunch or tea, we spend some time in the private interior realm of the moon. Feelings, intuitions, intimations of things coming into being. And it's very special. And one of her very special gifts is the gift of attunement. Maryliz has the kind of empathic presence in which people feel deeply seen and deeply heard. I've had that experience many times. And what she will be doing today is not so much a performance as a conversation, an intimate conversation with the audience. And some of the pieces, in fact, have been inspired by conversations or stories which people shared, personal stories which they shared with Maryliz, which she will be turning into songs. And then lastly, I like to say that Maryliz brings the soul into music and music into the soul. And today, she will be playing for maybe 75 minutes or so without interruption. So please save your applause until the end. And now it's my great pleasure and privilege to welcome to our first Festival of Sacred Music event, my very dear friend, Maryliz Smith.
Well, that was a bit overwhelming. And thank you, Toby, and thank you, Michael. And thank you all who are here for this inaugural festival, which I think in the way Michael introduced this relative to really listening to ourselves and to the music and to the stories, what's possible for us, not only in our own internal landscape, but amongst one another. So time will tell as we move through this. And I think really the music this will probably be about 35, 40 minutes, something like that, just so you understand the sort of the feeling of the timing of this, the music part of this anyway. This really is an invitation to pause and to slow down and hear what is amongst us, I would say. And I just want to tell you, as just the overall format, I'll begin with a piece by someone else whose name is Arvo Pärt, Estonian composer, and I'll say something about him in a moment. And that, I hope, will take us into a very silent / sound experience, so the combination of both sound and silence. And then there will be a number of pieces that, by permission, these conversations that I've had with individuals where we have explored what their unique, what I would call unique essence is. And in these conversations, it's fascinating. It's like a discovery conversation where we start to say, well, so what makes you really alive? What have you always done your entire life that's just, you just can't, you have to do it. And so we start to discover what that very distinct way of being is for this individual. And once that's surfaced and more sort of condensed, then I go into my studio, a recording studio, and improvise what I sense is what the conversation has been about and who this person is. And on the other side of that recording, I'll send an MP3 file to the person, and they'll either say, oh, that's great, right on, or they'll go, you really missed the mark. You got to start again. So, I mean, there's a whole collaboration that goes on between the individual and myself, because ultimately, most of these people, myself included, there can be sort of blocks sometimes, or walls, like what I would call a constitutional dilemma. How do I get through this? And what helps often is, well, if I can remember what's mine to do, and I can stay sort of on track with that as I'm going through this, another way of saying healing, I suppose, or opening into something more, then please let me have that piece of music as a resource and a reminder. So that's how these songs have been introduced in a very private way. So to have them be here amongst all of you is no small thing. It's like there's more skin being put on them. There's more clothing as to who the essence of this individual is. And so they've all said, sure, go ahead. You've got my permission to do that. So there'll be several, 4 or 5 songs, and I'll tell their stories. And then at the end, I'll play a couple of other pieces that one preview of coming attractions, the Einaudi, Due Tramonte. So with that, I'd love to begin with the music and then take us wherever we go together. And first of all, this Arvo Pärt piece. This piece called For Alina, was one of his very first pieces written in 1976, where he had been in about an 8-year period of just quiet. He didn't know what his voice was, where he was going. He decided to just go right down into the depths of himself. And that lasted for 8 years. What comes out of that? This is the first piece that was written by him out of that space. And for me, as he often does, he embodies this, the marriage of sound and silence. So let us begin into that, and then we'll continue from there. Thank you. This first person that I want to introduce you to is someone that was working in a very large company, and I think he's in his 30s, and all his life he felt misplaced. It's like, I'm just in the wrong place at the wrong time. What can I do? How can I get out of this? And we had a conversation where we started to uncover what his unique genius is, what he actually does very well. And it had to do very much with connecting with people where he was behind a computer all the time. And so after a little while, like a year or so, still in this other company, he decided to take a chance and make a move into a more intimate kind of a work setting. And the whole process, because of the way, in a sense, his family of origin was, he was always expected to do more than he actually could, or in ways that were really they weren't his to do. So finding what was his to do, which had much more to do with this relationship with other people, took him on a completely different trajectory, where he is now in this other position and is doing so well. And when we wrote this song together, one of the things that I thought of, and I wanted to read this little phrase that sort of goes with him. And he decided to get a tat also to remind himself of what this resource of this music was for him. But this, to me, is his very essence of how he has approached what is his to do. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending. By James Sherman. And I thought, if anybody has done that, it's this person. He is actually changing now his life by reason of doing what is really his to do. So this is for this wonderful man, and he loves jazz, so it's got a little bit of a jazz flavor to it. There's one thing I wanted to mention about the, towards the end of this, there's a real flourish of like the moment that he just went, oh, yes, I'm taking the risk. You'll hear that. It's just quite loud. And then it goes into the end where there's this improvisation for the performer, so that it's sort of symbolic of, okay, I'm taking this step and this step and this step, and I am shaping my life differently. So there'll be some improvisation at the end. This next person had a role in a private K through 12 school in San Francisco, and he was the admissions and academic counselor for all students coming through the school. And there was a time in his life where he knew that he needed to leave that school and go on to another position. And what we noticed about what his very essential nature was, that he was a very good bridge. Anybody that came into the school, felt very comfortable with him. He was very safe, and he still does. He has a very innocent quality about his presence. So there was very little judgment from him at all with any of these people that would come in. And then he would usher them out and give them guidance to where they wanted to go to school next. And so what came clear was that he is this bridge. And in his leaving this school, he was very concerned that he didn't want to leave these, he was really mourning the fact that he was leaving these people, his colleagues that he had for a long time. And yet he knew that he needed to, and then he created this bridge, and then he looked ahead into the future and started to create that bridge into his future life. So there's some way that it was the bridge here, goodbye, bridge there with those people, here, bridge here to know where I'm going, bridge going into the future. And he's very successful in another school in Southern California. So this is a piece that I call Innocence in honor of him. Poor Ken. I also wanted to point out, music-wise, that you'll hear these places in the music where it's a little bit lively to begin with, sweet, innocent, and then in several sections you'll hear slower sounds. That's the bridge, where he's making that bridge, slowing down, creating what was and what will be. This is a person that relates to one of our Callanish retreats in Vancouver. Or actually, they're held closer to Whistler in a beautiful place called the Brew Creek Center. It's in a meadow. It's a very protected area, resort. The place is given to us we just sort of basically take over for a week. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. So in some of the sessions that we hold, well, first of all, we've always made a pact, a vow to ourselves as a team to have a conversation about death, no matter what. That always is part of the process. And the way that we go about that conversation depends upon the group. And sometimes what we have done and still do is create what we call a threshold. And when we first started doing this, 25 years ago, it was just it was like a coat hanger thing. So it was this little funky thing where people could actually just go up to it and then relate to that as the symbol of going through the threshold, as it were. And so some people, it's just always about choice. Some people will go through, some people just stand, some people go to the back of the room, and then there's a conversation about how that relationship is. What is this? What does this mean? My relationship with death. So, and there was one. There are many, many memories of this kind of a process in this very safe environment. And the one that I want to really bring to fore right now is a young woman. This is years ago, in her 30s, young mother, very tall, gorgeous little dimples in her face when she would smile. And she came up to this threshold and just stood at it and basically would have nothing to do with it, meaning I am defiant. I'm not going through right now. I'm going to go take a walk in the woods. And that's exactly what she did. She just walked out of the room, took a walk in the woods, came back. We actually made sure she was okay. She came back a changed person. And there was something that happened in her that I think relates to this poem that I want to read about how she, and I think she would say that now, today, that how she came to the very bottom of her own what I can call well of being. Like she took all of herself, the good, the bad, the ugly, and just grabbed it all and became completely herself in this process, and therefore was able to then go on from there. But here's the poem by William Ayat, and then I want to play the music in honor of her. Anyone can sing. You just open your mouth and give shape to a sound. Anyone can sing. What is harder is to proclaim the soul, to initiate a wild and necessary deepening, to give the voice broad, sonorous wings of solitude, grief, and celebration, to fill the body with the echoes of voices lost long ago, to bravery and silence, to pry the reluctant heart wide open, to witness defeat, to suffer contempt, to shrink, lose face, go down in ignominy, to retreat to the last dark hiding place where the tattered remnants of your pride still gather themselves around your nakedness, to know these rags as your own protection, and yet still open, to face the possibility that your innermost core may hold nothing at all, and to sing from that, to fill the void with every hurt, every harm, every hard-won joy that staves off death, yet honors its coming. To sing both full and utterly empty, alone and conjoined, exiled and at home. To sing what people feel most keenly, yet never acknowledge until you sing it. Anyone can sing. Yes, Anyone can sing. Just a few words about this man, who's a very strong leader in his own right. But I think what he does and what we discovered is that he always takes a third side. He's often in places of conflict where he has to be that third side, and he can listen with integrity and somehow with equanimity. He's an amazing person. And what we came to was this: all humans are born free and equal in dignity and rights. And that's the Article 1 of the Declaration of Human Rights. And this is called the Majestic One. couple more stories. I want to read this one. This is, I've entitled it The Divining Rod, and it was conveyed to me, the story was conveyed to me by my partner, who was at the bedside of a very, very good friend of his who was dying. And this man, who's a very prominent citizen, was very afraid of dying. So this is a story about how they worked together, and then I want to play this very, very simple piece. He was a prominent citizen. He had influenced hundreds, if not thousands, of people. He was like a divining rod, one of the exceptional ones who can find water with a two-pronged stick. People around me confided, I'm not ready for him to go. He still has more to contribute. A few weeks before he died, he confided in me as well. He said, I'm afraid of choking. I listened. He said, I'm afraid of dying of asphyxiation. I listened. He said, help me. I listened. I said, when you feel my hand on your chest, we will breathe together. I placed my hand on his chest. We practiced breathing together. With each inhale and exhale, we rehearsed his dying. Now, at the time of his death, I am a midwife to his process. I request those who are frightened, those who are holding on to his life, to leave the room. 2 of us remain, sitting on either side of him. Helplessness floods my being, and then just as swiftly I find myself fully engaged with him as he is now and as I am now. He says, I'm afraid of choking. I listen. He says, I'm afraid of dying of asphyxiation. I listen. He says, help me. I listen. And I say, when you feel my hand on your chest, we will breathe together. And so we breathe once more. As one, my hand gently upon his chest. And as he takes his last breath, an immense and tender rush fills the room. And I hear myself say, help me. And in my imagination, I hear him say, when you feel my hand on your chest, we will breathe together. And this is specifically written for only two lines, meaning the right hand only has one note and the left hand only has one note, together. But it feels like it's one person and then the other person in the way they work together. There's nothing like holding and being held. That's a sacred act in itself. And this piece is a personal one with a horse that I had an experience with. There's a place called Medicine Horse Ranch, which is about an hour north of here, and it's equine leadership programs are held there, and I've been involved in those for a number of years. And this was a moment when very early on in understanding how to be with horses and how they can teach us, I'll speak for myself, how they have taught me, especially with body language and communication and just so many things. I was in a pretty sad place in my life, and I didn't even realize I was. And there was a horse in the corral, and I was to just go up to that horse, little by little, until we made contact. And so just out a little bit from me, I would walk over, and then his name was Toyota. Toyota would look up while after he's munching, he'd sort of check me out, and then go back and take another step, and so it went until I was actually touching his body. And as soon as I touched his body, I just almost collapsed. He was pretty petite, so his back was like there. So I actually instinctually just put my body over his back and just sobbed for the longest time. There was so much in my inner recesses that I didn't even know was there. And Toyota, just the steady, reliable Toyota just held me. So I was held. I so often am holding others, and to actually surrender and feel safe enough to be held, with that receptive act being so powerful. It was just one of those moments where it was like, oh, thank you. So this is the poem, and then the piece of music that goes with Beloved Toyota. This is by Rumi, this poem. Do not worry if our harp breaks. Thousands more will appear. We have fallen in the arms of love where all is music. If all the harps in the world were burned down, still inside the heart, there will be hidden music playing. Do not worry if all the candles in the world flicker and die. We have sparks that start the fire. The songs we sing are like foam on the surface of the sea of being, while the precious gems lie deep beneath. But the tenderness in our songs is a reflection of what is hidden in the depths. Stop the flow of your words, open the window of your heart, and let the Spirit speak. So, two more pieces. The first one by Einaudi, which is the one that Toby mentioned, Due Tramonte, Two Sunsets. And the image that I understand that Ludovico Einaudi said about this was that he loved sunsets, and a friend of his and he were driving in Italy, and they were going over hills, and the sunset was happening, so they came up in the car, and there was the sunset. Went down, they couldn't see it, and then they came back up again, and there's a second one. So it's called Due Tramonte, Two Sunsets. So I'll play that, and then I'll go right into the last piece, which is a piece by Keith Jarrett, a jazz composer. And it's called Meditation, and it really is just a written out, beautiful improvisation. And I thought we could just use that as a time to think about those who we love and the ripple effects of the kind of gratitude and blessing that we have for one another and for those people in our worlds. So first is Due Tramonte. It has been played over for most of the 100 plus retreats on Callanish, and every time I play it now, it's like all the stories of people encoded in this piece of music. It goes on, and it will continue to do so. So if anyone comes to mind in this piece, it certainly will be happening for me. Many, many people coming through my own heart and mind as it's being played. And just with meditation by Keith Jarrett, this is his way of saying thank you to the people that have looked after him for some time. He had some strokes and has not been able to play the piano ever again. So now this is like it's just such a profound way of saying thank you. And again, to me, the ripple effects of how we say thank you and the gratitude for the people in our lives, and this reciprocity of holding, being held, and actually being very deeply seen and heard. So with that, here's Keith Jarrett.
Don't take it, don't, don't take it, don't, don't take it, don't, don't take it, don't, don't take it, don't take it, don't take it, don't take it, don't take it.